Welcome to Arts Roll Call, a podcast showcasing artists and arts organizations, highlighting the role of the arts today in Greater Lansing. I'm Robin Miner-Swartz. I'm an editor, communications consultant, and a lifelong arts advocate. And today I'm talking with Tom Arthur, the founder and director of Stage One at Sycamore Creek Eastwood, a vibrant performing arts and community incubator in Lansing, Michigan. Under Tom's leadership, Stage One has become home to local theater companies, musicians, and filmmakers, as well as a launch pad for creative collaborations across the city. Tom has guided Stage One into a unique role at the intersection of arts, entrepreneurship, and community, hosting everything from professional theater seasons and youth talent festivals to incubator kitchens and civic conversations. Tom is also the lead pastor of Sycamore Creek Church, where he's spent more than 16 years cultivating a culture of curiosity, creativity, and compassion. His vision helped transform an existing church campus into an arts-centered space that weaves together faith, artistry, and community development. He's a co-founder of the Lansing chapter of Startup Grind and the long-running C.S. Lewis Festival in northern Michigan, both examples of his commitment to building bridges between the arts, entrepreneurship, and spiritual imagination. Regardless of the hat he's wearing, Tom is working. His work is driven by a passion for helping people create something beautiful together. Tom, welcome to Arts Roll Call. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much.
As
Appreciate
I
you.
just we're so glad you're here, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about all of
Yeah,
the things you have your hands in. As I just said, you're someone who wears a lot of hats, pastor of Sycamore Creek Church being one of them, but you've used that role and the church itself to create something much larger with Stage One Performing Arts Center. How did that vision start?
yeah. It started. I mean, you got to go way back because when I was appointed to Sycamore Creek in 2009, I spent my first 2 years kind of just getting to know the church. And around year two, I realized everybody I knew in Lansing was from my church, and I just started on a big sort of networking binge. And I would meet with somebody and then ask who are two more people I should meet with, and eventually I ended up down at the Arts Council when it was home. Its home was in Old Town.
Mhm.
And as I was meeting with the executive director at the time, Chad Swan Badgerow walked through the room and she said, "Hey, you should meet with Chad." And so Chad and I got together for lunch. I'm not, you don't want to put me on a stage, at least not to act. Unless you're wanting me to act like myself, which then I won't act like myself. I'll get all stiff and everything. But I was an avid theater goer at the time. I lived in Holt, and Peppermint Creek was in South Lansing, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe there's a community theater in South Lansing I didn't know about." So I started attending regularly at Peppermint Creek, and then you know we would partner with Peppermint Creek in different things. We hosted some of their shows in our South Lansing building, and we did just fun stuff like that together. And eventually, our church was approached by Asbury United Methodist Church, and they were struggling after COVID. They had a beautiful location on Lake Lansing Road, had a big, huge stage. And at the time, I knew that Peppermint Creek was nomadic. They were no longer they no longer had a home. And from just being friends with Chad, I knew there were several other community theaters in the area. And so I don't. One of the very first times I was there, I asked Chad, like, "Hey, if we do this, what would you think if we made this your home? Like, if we just said, let's remodel this building so that it can be for community theater as well as our church." And he was, I mean, Chad and his husband and family are members, or we call them partners of our church. So he was optimistic and hopeful because of that, because of our relationship. But he was also skeptical because he's had so many of these conversations before leading up to that, and they never ended up anywhere. But long story short, it worked out here, and we're just celebrated our second year. And Peppermint Creek and Ixion Ensemble have been two of the anchor groups. We've had lots of other smaller community theaters that have done productions at Stage One. But we essentially just gave Chad the budget for remodeling the sanctuary into a performing arts center and said, "Hey, you remodel it and we'll make it work on Sunday morning." And that's more or less what we've done.
So it sounds like it was really kind of fortuitous timing that you were able to go into this new space with the idea that it was also going to be created for Stage One. So do you think that was helpful?
Yeah, it was really helpful. And we it's hard to like retool a church that has already existed, but we shut this church, like we actually, when we adopted this church, we said we're going to shut it down for a year
Mm,
and we are going to remodel it. So and we're going to start something brand new. And I don't know, that's just I don't know, in some sense that's always easier to start
mhm,
something new, to get it to go in a different direction than to take something that was already existing.
mhm,
And churches aren't unique in this regard. I don't think it just take a group of people, any group of people doing anything, any arts group, any institution, um, and try to get it to go in a totally different direction, and that's pretty hard. So shutting it down is kind of, we actually held actual memorial service for Asbury United Methodist Church. We brought like all the past members, the past pastors, and we ended up like going outside. We covered the sign with a tarp that was kind of like going to the graveside, and we celebrated all of the many years of what they had done in that building. But it was, you know, for something to be reborn, it has to die first,
mhm.
and that was certainly with the, you know, if Peppermint Creek hadn't been homeless at the time, as far as like a, you know, they Peppermint Creek is amazing. They have very much like, well, they, in those years where they didn't have a home, they were doing stuff in creative places, but
Mhm.
we've done stuff like that, and it wears on you when you don't
Mhm.
have a home to go back to and kind of fall back on. So if that hadn't been the case, if this church hadn't approached us, um, at that time, I don't think this would have happened, or it would have been much harder to make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like going in with sort of that early vision, even not knowing what it was ultimately going to look like, probably made a big difference in the impact of what you were able to create.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what is it like having a performing arts space in the church? What kind of productions are happening? Are people starting to discover it now, kind of organically?
Yeah, so we have about 10 different community partners that use the building. They use it more than we do.
Mm,
Um, you didn't quite ask it, the question in this direction, but I'll answer it in this direction.
sure.
What I didn't realize until we got into it was that for the church, we were committing to tearing down and setting up in our own building every Sunday morning. Um, and so, because usually on Saturday nights there are shows,
Yeah.
and so most churches, I think, they set up like the stage. They wouldn't call it a stage; they call it something like a chancel. But they'd set it up sometime during the week, and they would leave it. And that's why most churches sit empty on a Sunday morning or throughout the week. And ours is being used constantly. And again, Peppermint Creek and Ixion are the two big ones. Ixion just finished their song for Coretta. Peppermint Creek opened the season with a banger. Like they always do a big musical, all the bells and whistles. They did Ride the Cyclone. It was absolutely amazing. Um, there's so much that happens. I can't even remember all the details. The Good Neighbor concert series is that Tanya Watt brings in um, musicians, singer songwriters from all over the state. She started to bring in a couple from out of the state. So you would have to travel to festivals to see these people, and she's bringing them right here, and they do that once a month. Um, Quality Scary is another anchor group. They do classic horror mixed with comedy sketches. It's absolutely hilarious. We've had a new group that has just started using the building, called Okemos Events, and they represent a group here in Lansing I didn't even really know existed. It's Tamlin speaking Indians,
Mm,
and they're bringing in stand up comedians from India. They're flying them here to Lansing, Michigan to do stand up comedy at stage one. And their next one, they told me, is going to be in January. At first, I was like, "Oh, I want to go see what's a Indian, what stand up." I love stand up comedy,
mhm.
but then it's in Tamlin, so I I was curious if I would still understand like if how the rhythm goes even in a different language. Happen Dance, local dance group, is using it. They're doing a production of the what is it, the sleeping bear, the Manitou. Now I'm forgetting what the name of that is. The Legend of Manitou.
Oh, the Legend of the Sleeping Bear
Yeah,
Dunes.
yeah, the children's book.
Yeah.
Been a production of that, and they're going to be doing that. So I don't know. Those are just some of the groups. We partnered with Dustin Hunt of Mural Maddox. He's a local mural artist. Probably, I would say he's maybe the best known mural artist at this
Hmm.
point in Lansing. And we basically gave him the entire outside of the building to do a mural on. And he did this really wild abstract mural that at first we were kind of like, Dustin, what in the world are you thinking? Because everything that he had done, everything I had seen was representational,
Hmm.
and this one was abstract. And he said, "You guys have so much happening in this building that is not churchy, and it's not even a church. Like these aren't the things that the church is doing. We're just sharing the building."
Hmm.
And he said, "I can't take the shape of the church out of the building, but I can put something on the building that nobody would ever put on a church building." That makes people curious. They're like, what's going on in there? And that mural popped us off of the street. Like, you
Hmm.
can't drive down Lake Lansing now and not notice this. The mural is beautiful. At first, when I saw it like on a little screen, like computer or whatever, I was like, Dustin, what are you thinking? But it's amazing now. And it's captured the imagination of so many people. And that mural has, I mean, I think people in Lansing were starting to learn about what we were about and doing, but that mural, maybe more than anything, really grabbed people's attention.
Hmm.
And I show the building now 2 or 3 times a week to different groups that want to use it. Some community groups, some private groups. I have a sorority looking at using the building because it's also a rental venue.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just it's definitely we're certainly not advertising at this point very actively. It's just people are coming to us, and then I think more and more people are learning about all the things that are happening in the building.
Well, and all the things you're describing is like still not even all that's going on there.
Oh yeah,
You've got an incubator kitchen. You've got space for local entrepreneurs. Like, was this all something that was in your head from the very beginning, or how did these become a part of the plan and the mission?
yeah, that's a great question. So it at first it seems like just a really weird and odd mix of things. So you have a church, you have an incubator kitchen, you have a performing arts center, and then essentially like an event venue. I mean, some of those kind of fit together, but some don't. Um, this I don't know. I don't want to get too churchy in this space, but one of the things that's a piece of my faith is that you just share your stuff. Like if you
Hmm.
have something, you share it, and so you live with a sort of open-handedness in life, where that if somebody needs something and you have it, and certainly if it's not going to do you any harm, then certainly use it or share it. And really just what happened was when this building fell into our laps, it didn't cost us anything. It was given to us. The remodeling of it didn't cost us anything because the church had an endowment that we were able to take a loan out and then just pay the loan off over time with the interest from the endowment. So to us, it felt like that was a faith. It was, we would call that grace. Grace is when you get something that you don't deserve, and that can be religious or otherwise. But it was this building was an act of grace. It fell in our laps, didn't cost us anything, and so we felt like our posture was just to be open-handed back to the community with it and let it be like pass through our hands into sharing with everybody else. And so the building had this big stage area, but it also had a commercial licensed kitchen. And so I knew a local baker, Honey Bun Bakery, and I knew that she was working out of her home kitchen. And kitchen, I forget exactly the terminology, but it's like kitchen law, or like there's some kind
Like
of law.
cottage, I think it's cottage
Yes,
law.
you
Yeah.
got it. Cottage
Hmm.
law allows somebody to do something in their kitchen that they sell at like farmers markets,
Yeah.
but not to do distribution to like grocery stores or
Hmm.
that sort of thing. And so you have to have a commercial licensed kitchen for that sort of thing. But then the cottage law only allows certain kinds of food to be done in that way. So we had a tea maker that came to us, and apparently, like if you're doing liquid or that you can't do that in your home kitchen,
Mm-hmm.
you have to do that in a commercially licensed kitchen. So again, it was just this building had a commercial kitchen. How can we share it? We had this thing fall in our laps. How can we share it? And I have been involved long before this building in the entrepreneurial community. And I'm a startup coach with Wisdom Partners out of Silicon Valley. So I coach startup businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been part of the MSU entrepreneurial community as well, being a coach with college students who are doing like pitch competitions and so on. Um, when you were describing all those things that we're doing, really, that's just like the resume of an entrepreneur. Like
Yeah.
you have too many ideas, and you can't like, I have more ideas than are even listed in that initial bio. But so I have a soft spot in my heart for entrepreneurs trying to start businesses. My family were entrepreneurs growing up. My dad and stepmom. I've seen that life. My stepdad tried starting a business and it didn't work, and tried a different business, didn't work, and then finally hit on the one that took him to retirement. And that's there's a lot of risk involved in that, and it's kind of like there's not much difference between an entrepreneur and like an artist. There's a lot of risk that you take in putting your thing out there. And I think what we've wanted to do both with arts and entrepreneurs is absorb some of that risk by sharing. And it doesn't cost us much to share. But boy, if you're going to try to start a business and you're going to try to rent a commercial kitchen and you're going to invest in all that equipment, that's a lot of capital outlay. The fun part has been that we didn't imagine this, but this is the way it's played out, is that there's a synergy between theater and cooking. Because theaters have intermissions and they want food. And we have people now in the building who sometimes are able to provide that food at intermission. And there's sort of a cross platform synergy that happens there.
Well, what I love about everything you're describing is you have figured out a way to maximize every inch of both like the physical and intellectual space that you're occupying, it sounds like. And you come to that because for a lot of the reasons you've laid out, a lot of grace, a lot of fortune that's happened in a lot of ways. But also, I mean, it just sounds very intentional, even though it's also so broad and big. And then you add in, you were a venue for the film festival this year
Yeah.
too. Like it's like you keep adding cards to your deck, it seems like.
Yeah. So, you mentioned intentionality. I always think back to Dolly Parton, who said it takes a lot of money to look this trashy.
Hmm.
And it takes a lot of like intentional work to create a space that can be flexible and absorb with a sort of in a sort of informal, not corporate sort of feel, a lot of community partnerships. And one of the I don't know, one church leader or mentor from afar that I've studied and learned from says you can either structure for growth or control, but not both. Um, and I think we've structured for growth over control, and we've done it in a sort of with a lot of faith that the people that we allow use the building will be good partners. So our strategy is not we've tried first of all to make it affordable. Um, and we did bring in some consultants that told us what the fair market value is, and most groups just can't pay anywhere near fair market value. So one of the ways that we keep it affordable is we trust that a group doesn't need somebody there. So they meet with me ahead of time. I walk through how the building is, and then basically we just like, here's the key, like here's the code to get in the door, and here's where the cleaning supplies are, and please clean up after yourself and leave it in better condition than when you found it. And the groups that use it over and over, and like the local groups, like the Capital City Film Festival, they have a vested interest in having a partnership. They don't want to lose that partnership and that affordable space in the future. So you can pay to have a cleaning person from our group clean the building, or here's the vacuum cleaners. You clean up after yourself. And we've just, I mean, again, we just celebrated our 2nd year anniversary at the beginning of October. And I haven't had a group in the building that we would come anywhere close to saying you can't come back and use the space. Every group has added something. And it's, I think when you live with that sort of open handedness, it benefits everybody. It's a win-win for everybody. We get things out of it, they get things out of it, and yeah, and it allows us to be really flexible with like just fitting things in. Like if there's a space, here's our calendar. Look at it. If it's available, yes, you can use it.
So you've described a mind-boggling number of things that you've got going on just in these first 2 years. What's next? Like what are you dreaming up for the next couple of
Sure.
years?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we're really like exploring, we hired a grant writer this year to help us fund some of the vision that we have. And we currently have a grant that we think we're pretty competitive for. We just finished it. It was due October 15th. That essentially brings on a full-time person to manage a lot of this stuff. Because right now I'm the one who's managing. And this is like a classic entrepreneur. Like when you start a business, you're doing everything. You're doing the
Mhm.
marketing. You're doing the actual whatever product it is. You're doing like the HR. You're doing like everything. And I have that sort of, I guess, entrepreneurial energy and spirit and creativity at the front end. But my attention span like starts to wane somewhere around year 3, 4, 5, something like that. And
Mhm.
we wrote a grant to bring on a full-time person who would manage a couple of things. One is to shore up the local expression of this kind of partnership between Sycamore Creek and the arts community and the entrepreneurial community, and particularly financially. So this person will be a corporate sponsorship and event sales manager.
Mhm.
So instead of everybody coming to me and me showing them the building and navigating through that, and I'm really at this point not doing a lot of advertising, it's just coming our way.
Yeah.
But this person will go out and advertise and try to fill the spaces in the calendar. Like a lot of our building gets used a lot in the evenings and weekends and not as much during the day. It does get
Mhm.
used, like we just had AARP and the Women's Commission use the building to do a showing of Menopause. It's a movement, which
Mhm.
was a screening of a film. And they were there during the day. So, what are other groups like that that could use the building there and that could rent it and bring that income or that revenue stream in? And so that would be one part of their job. The second part would be to build a national network of, for us, it would be churches that are doing something like this,
Mhm.
like partnering in creative ways with community groups, particularly arts groups, to learn from and to see how everybody's doing this and what basically like what tips we can take from each other for how we're accomplishing this and to build those relationships in that network across the national landscape. Um, and I think November, like in a week or so, is when we'll hear if we made the first round, and then they do like interviews and that sort of thing. That's kind of the big next step vision.
Well, and I was even going to ask you, like, are there others like you out in the world? And you probably haven't had a moment
Yeah.
to get your head up above water and see if that's happening, but finding peers must be really helpful in that way.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pieces. I describe vision and leadership. So I'm when I've gone to arts council things, they usually put us in different groups. There's like artists and people who work with artists. And I probably fall more in the people who work with artists. And there's a sort of art to working with artists because
Mhm.
artists are creative people and they sometimes don't fit in the boxes that people who are administrators want them to fit into. But I'm also an artist. I am a photographer. I studied photography in undergrad and I don't get to do it as much as I would like to. But I am part of a meetup group locally that regularly meets and just goes out and shoots photographs together and then shares them with each other. Um, but the as I network and as I like do all of those things, I have found, well, so one of the things I want to bring this person on is to find the people or the groups like us. But the in visioning and leadership, it's like a puzzle, and there's different pieces, and the difference is that usually a puzzle can only make one picture, but leadership and vision is like having puzzle pieces that you can put together in different ways that make different pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are some pieces of groups that are like us. There's a coaching network I was a part of that, I want to say there was a church in Birmingham, England, like
Mm.
across the sea, that I was in this coaching cohort, and it was through Zoom, obviously. And so I regularly talked with her, and their church had shrunk mostly to the point, like our church is actually growing, but their church had shrunk. And one of the ways that they were managing the building was they had literally given it over to an arts group. Probably it'd almost be like if Reach Arts in Lansing was housed in a church. And
Mm.
the church was a very small part of what was going on in that building. And then Reach would have all of its, what it does, which is vast and big.
Mm.
There's a group in Orlando. There's a church in Orlando that when they built a new wing on the church, they built a performing arts center. It's called St. Luke's United Methodist Church. And they build a performing arts center, and the church themselves put on Broadway level performances. And if you're in Orlando, you have a huge talent pool of professional artists. And I've been in conversation with them as well, kind of learning what they do and how they do it. And they're a much bigger church than we are. We're not a mega church. We're just we're
Mm-hmm.
three small churches in the Lansing region that just happen to work really well together and very creatively. So yes, finding those people, those are two that I'm aware of right now. And if we get this grant, this person's, one of their jobs will be to network and find the people and the groups like us. I should say there's another book that I read about a synagogue, a Jewish synagogue in a downtown area that had essentially like turned their building into something like a nonprofit hub, like the way that Child and Family Charities has turned the old McLaren building, a hospital in Lansing, into a nonprofit hub. And I don't. Those are some of the pieces of the puzzle that have fit
Yeah.
together. Some I've learned about before, and some I've learned about after. There's a church in Ohio that they learned. It was a new church when they were building a building for the first time. They knew that the local school didn't have a performance auditorium, so that's what they built their sanctuary as, was a performance auditorium for the local school. So now the local school does all of their performances in that building. I've never been down to visit that, but I would love to go see it. That's certainly one of those pieces of the puzzle on my vision board.
I'm guessing your vision board is quite large. I mean, this is an
Well,
impressive array
it's all
of
in my head.
undertakings. Well, yeah,
I don't think I've ever actually made. I should make a vision board, a physical one.
in your spare time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Tom, anything coming up that we should be on the lookout for that you'd like to promote here?
One of the things I'm really excited about is just as I've learned about, so our vision was really mostly to be a venue that hosted other groups, like to not do things ourselves. But we do some things from time to time, like in October every year, we do an awards banquet gala, and we give awards to three artists that have used the space. We give, our three core values are to be curious, creative, and compassionate. So we give an award to an artist who helped us be curious, an award to an artist who helped us be creative, and one who has helped us be compassionate. Um, so that's like a thing that we do ourselves to celebrate the arts and the artists that are in the building. But coming up, we're going to try something new that we've not done before. There's been sort of talk in the arts community about wanting to do like an arts prom. And so we're not quite doing a prom, but for Christmas, we're going to do an ugly sweater swing dance party.
Fun.
And we've built relationships with the Lansing Community College Jazz Band. And so there's going to be a live jazz band, and we're going to bring in instructors, and we're going to rent a dance floor to put in there. And that's the first Friday in December. I want to say it's like the 6th, maybe it's the 5th. It'll be in the evening, and we'll have, I'm sure we'll do prizes, and there'll be food and drinks and all that kind of good stuff. But that'll be open to the community, but especially we'll network and invite all the artists that participate on a regular basis and use the building. I really want to encourage people to check out the Good Neighbor concert series. I think these are people you would travel to see at festivals, and Tanya Watt is bringing them right here in Lansing. If you're Tamlin speaking Indian in the area, they told us like they have to go to Detroit to get stand-up comedy in their own language, and they wanted to do it right here in Lansing. So if you're Tamlin speaking, watch for that in January. And then I'm really excited. I love the Legend of Sleeping Bear. That's the name of the book. I was like, I've read this book to my kids so many times, and I was having a brain fart for a minute there. But Happen Dance is doing the Legend of Sleeping Bear. I don't immediately remember when that is. There's so many things I barely keep track of them, but it's coming up this season sometime. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And I mean, I get to as much of it as I can. Peppermint Creek, Ixion. But I can't do everything.
Right.
That's a good problem to have, is to have so much art available that you can't like take it all in.
It is.
What a good problem to have.
Yep. Well, Tom, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so we have a website, stage1.theater, but maybe the best place, the place that we keep up to date the most, and our community partners will share, we just let them be like posters as well, is on our Facebook page. So facebook.com/stage1mi. And the one is always spelled out ONE, not the number one. So those are two places where people can go and look and find out about things. Sometimes we have a grant out right now. We have a lot of grants out right now to rebuild our website so that it's more of it's more of a hub for everything that's happening. Right now, it's really more just advertising the event venue that you can rent. And you have to go to everybody's individual websites to find what's going on. But we partnered with 517 Living in their calendar for there to be a tag and embed that in our website so that you can see all the different groups that use the space. So hopefully our website will be up to including all of that. But right now, Facebook is probably the easiest and best place.
Great. Well, Tom, thank you so much for being here today. I personally have learned a ton and really enjoyed hearing about all of this, and I'm hoping the same goes for folks who are tuning into this. You've got a real gem in Lansing, and thank you for stewarding it the way that you are.
Thanks for helping platform us.
Yep, happy to do that. This podcast has been a production of the Arts Council of Greater Lansing. To learn more about them, go to lansingarts.org.